Things were fairly random in CSGO, but in CS2, we've started to gain a relative amount of structure. Early 2024, we get the first case, the Kilowatt. Late 2024, we receive the Gallery case along with the Armory. 6 months later, in March, we get the Fever case as well as 3 new active drop pool collections. The CS2 pattern continues, but in late 2025, around a month before the Armory update, we received the Genesis terminal. For around 12 years, we were used to and accustomed to the ways in which Valve introduced skins into the market. Cases and keys were the main source. We did receive collections via operations, but that has been supplemented via the Armory. Then, all of a sudden, without any precedent, no keys, no signature unboxing animation, you just simply buy the skin. And as the name would suggest, I believe that the Genesis terminal was the beginning of the end for cases as we knew it. It was Valve, after their long-standing fight against regulatory pressure in the EU, finally standing down and finally implementing a new era of Counter-Strike skins. But as time goes on, we are now in January, almost February, I do think my perspective has changed due to recent changes and content they've been adding into the game. I now think the direction of the terminal is not to completely make cases obsolete, but rather make it so CS2 and Valve run 3 separate economies within the game, and they all exist and coexist for different reasons. Economy 1, the one we're all familiar with, cases in the key system. Pay real money, get a randomized outcome from a predetermined list. This is what countries like Belgium and the Netherlands have banned outright. And this is what France has tried to work around with the X-ray system. And these 3 countries are in Europe, which is by far CS2's biggest player base. Economy 2, introduced in CS2 but not unfamiliar to us players, is going to be the Armory. It mimics the operations style format we saw in CSGO, but it takes away the signature buy tiers for money that existed in CSGO and replaces it with you have to play to earn the stars. But that simple trick, buying the pass and not the stars, is what keeps them free from scrutiny via lawmakers. Most loot box definitions deem loot boxes as being exchangeable for real world currency, or buying the key, or being able to take what you received and trade it back into real world currency. Now you're probably saying, there's a Steam marketplace. I can get it back into real world currency. Well, yes, but it's still Steam balance. Third-party marketplaces do exist. However, their growth and their trust was built completely independently of Valve. It is technically against their terms of service. They just don't enforce it. And as far as they're concerned, they don't want to enforce it. It's the reason why the CS2 market is so big. But EU doesn't seem to care. They just want the loot boxes out of the game. So everything's good for now. The Stars introduce a loot box-ish system with the Armory and redeeming collections, but there is no animation and it's done with in-game currency, and technically you can only sell it on the Steam market. Even if you're buying from a third-place market, you're technically still only trading with another player. You're not buying or exchanging anything outright through Valve. These are third parties. To come down on all of these marketplaces is not worth the time for EU. And now you have Valve's newest dimension in terms of the economy, the terminal. Direct purchases at fixed prices. It's technically free. It's received through an active drop. And there is no gambling aspect to it because you're not getting a random item. You have to choose to purchase the item, even if there is chances of which one you're going to receive. Cool, you got lucky and got the M4 full throttle offered to you, but you still have to buy it. That skirts the regulations. So I think now that the terminal is going to run parallel with cases and not replace it, and that's exactly why Valve built it. Depending on the float, which is another video for another day, a factory new covert from the Genesis terminal can run you around $350 on average. That's what I've seen the most of, which is right there equivalent to 140 case openings, assuming a key is $250. I know there's tax, but whatever, simplicity's sake. So Valve doesn't need volume from terminals. They need whales in regulated markets who cannot legally open cases anymore. One terminal sale does the work of 140 case openings. It's not about player experience. It's about maximizing and extracting the most amount of revenue from regions in which the case model is entirely dead. Belgium, the Netherlands, France, probably more countries in Europe in the future, those communists can still access the terminal. And they can also still access the Armory. Valve gets their money, though, through a different pipeline. But if this was all about regulatory compliance, the Budapest Major made me think otherwise. I made a video about this, predicting that the Budapest sticker capsules would have terminals instead of stickers, because it only makes sense. If they want to get rid of the case model, they would have to get rid of the sticker capsules as well. But they didn't. Sticker capsules are still the same. And so are the souvenir packages, which have that signature slot machine style rotation before you get your item. If Valve was systematically removing every bit of cases in which they could for the future of the game, souvenir items would have been included in that list. But they weren't, and they were unchanged. And they came out after the terminal. They had the perfect opportunity to confirm to us and to standardize the system by making everything into terminals with the Budapest Major. But they didn't touch it. So that's not the behavior of a company trying to standardize their system. That's going to be the behavior of a company trying to maximize their benefits by running multiple systems in parallel with one another to be in compliance with any market that may look at the game. Now here's what I think they're doing with the active drops, because I think that's a different story. The most recent update, we saw Dust 2 and Lake taken out of the active drops, as well as the Anubis collection taken out last month. Now these are all CSGO era models, meaning the gun in-game. Meanwhile, the new collections, Radial, Ascent, Boreal, and the two new ones, those are all CS2 native guns using the new engine, the new standards for texture. So I think they are trying to phase out cases from the drop pool, such that cases can only be earned through the Armory by bypassing the dropping a case thing regulatorily, if that's a word. I think they're trying to migrate all weapons being actively dropped as CS2 models. The terminal is but a vehicle for showcasing those new CS2 models in a new format that's able to be purchased and consumed by markets that wouldn't otherwise be able to with cases. So I think it'll be more like terminals once a year, cases once a year, every 6 months, in that same pattern we saw at the start of the video. US, most of Asia, South America, Canada, cases are still viable here. I don't think there's any reason to get rid of them for them. If anything, the case market is on the up and up here. And I think the Budapest Major was confirmation of that for me, personally. Terminals will serve that gap in revenue that will be missed from not having them in the case pool. They are, after all, the biggest player base in CS2. They can still access the high tier items, and Valve receives the full margin as opposed to just $250, which makes up for it way, way quicker. And the Armory sits in the middle, marrying both systems. Everyone can participate because stars aren't real currency, technically. This is the safest track. I think cases will be put in here from here on out. All active drop pool cases will be replaced by terminals subsequently, or just the one terminal. Now, the Genesis terminal dropped in September, the knife trade-up update October. That's why I think there were no knives initially released in the Genesis collection, because simply there was no mechanic in place to get the Genesis terminal with knife trade-ups. But I do think if another terminal comes out, you will have a knife in there. You won't be able to purchase it, but there will be one, so you have to buy reds to trade up to it. For non-EU players though, I do think there will be a knife in a new case that you can get outright from a case. But if you want one, in one of these countries that have loot boxes banned, you then have to go the terminal route, buy 5 reds. And that will of course expand pressure and demand on the terminals worldwide. Right? There'll still be people in the US that want one of those guns from the terminal. But I don't think it's Valve's priority to get US players to buy terminal guns. I do think cases will stay. If you don't want to buy any cases outright and you just want to trade your items, try SkinsMonkey.com. Today's video has been sponsored by the lovely ladies and gentlemen over at SkinsMonkey.com. SkinsMonkey is the industry standard trading forum and marketplace for anything and all things Counter-Strike. 24/7 support and an instant trading system so fast, those Bulgarian overpay goblins are sure to go out of business. Now, if that's not enough incentive, throw my code Mike in on the website for $5 off on your first trade. But if you trade up to $100 on the website, they'll double your bonus from 5 to 10. Now, if you don't have any skins, and I just gave you some free game on investment advice, you could deposit money and use the website as a marketplace as well. In that case, my code Mike will net you a 5% deposit bonus, bringing it from 30 to 35%. So go get swagged out, courtesy of SkinsMonkey.com. So here's the actual framework that I think will manifest. Cases are not dying, but they will be toned down in terms of attention and frequency, because a lot of the players that open a lot of cases will start to be segmented off over time as laws evolve. Legal markets will keep them, regulated markets will lose access, but gain access via the terminal and the Armory, in which all players are united under that system. It's the universal bridge because it's compliant everywhere. It does not use real world currency. It doesn't even use the Steam balance, which is technically not real world currency. Terminals don't need to be high volume. They're meant to extract the maximum amount of money from Belgium, Netherlands, whoever is next on that list of loot box banned countries, and it'll just exist. I think it'll take over the active drop pool. I do not think they will become the mainstay. EU players through the Armory can still supply cases via the market. They cannot open them, but they can redeem one and sell it, which keeps supply high and intact and doesn't raise the prices of cases artificially, which is also good. I think their main goals are to take cases out of the active drops, to make all active drops CS2 model guns and not CSGO. From there, terminals, cases, and the Armory will coexist in somewhat harmonious fashion. Valve stays ahead of regulatory pressure, because if a country just gets banned, cool, you just expand your terminal system to that country, get rid of cases. You already have a system in place. The countries that aren't giving regulatory pressure via loot boxes, cool, you keep the cases there instead. And if anything else changes in the future, which commonly takes years to pass, Valve is always one step ahead. So with all the recent stuff, that's my prediction for now. The only thing I can do and you can do is wait. We got our last content in October of 2025, so we should realistically expect something new in March. And it's been about every 6 months we receive a case or a terminal. So I'm very curious to see what comes out next month. Let me know what you think about this proposed system I just talked about, because obviously it's just an idea, nothing you should take as hard fact or set in stone. Take care.